Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa sallallahu ala rasulillah. I'm Brother Ali, also known as Abu Aqiq. And inshallah, this is going to be our first video that we're going to produce for Face to Floor, the blog site, facetofloor.wordpress.com. Inshallah, we're going to have different topics. We're going to cover general topics, different themes. One, and this is the first of the lessons, is clarity in the creed. This is going to be one of the major themes that we're going to be covering in our various video series. And this series, Clarity in the Creed, this is about explaining and clarifying the matters of the creed of the Sunni Muslims. And inshallah, today we're going to start with talking about the 13 attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when we say the 13 attributes, we don't mean Allah has only 13 attributes. But the scholars, ulama, they mentioned that knowing these 13 attributes is a personal obligation. And various scholars of Ahl Sunnah, they mentioned these 13 attributes in particular, such as Imam An-Nawawi, Ibn Ashir, and many other scholars of Ahl Sunnah, as Sunusi and many others. So, inshallah, by understanding these 13 attributes, a person has very quick and easy way to understand what befits the Creator, Allah, what befits the Creator, and what does not befit the Creator. And these 13 attributes, as you see them, inshallah, the scholars mention these 13 in particular, and as again to drive this home, that's saying Allah only has 13 attributes. But these 13 were mentioned in particular, and Allah Ta'ala is not attributed with the opposite of these attributes. So for example, Allah is not attributed with the opposite of everlastingness, meaning having an end to His existence. And when I use a masculine pronoun, he, him, his, this does not connote at all that Allah has a physical gender. Also, so for example, Allah is not attributed with the opposite of everlastingness. Allah is not attributed with the opposite of knowledge, which would be ignorance, and so on. So these 13 scholars of Ahl Sunnah, they mentioned in particular to know these, and it is an obligation upon the mukallaf, the Islamically accountable person, to know these 13 attributes. And it does not mean to have them memorized, but to know them so that one would not deny them, so that one would not doubt that Allah has any of these attributes that are mentioned here. So the first is existence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Quran, Afillahi shak, which means that in Allah's existence there is no doubt. There is no doubt about the existence of the Creator. And the brief rational proof for the existence of the Creator, the very simple rational proof, is the existence of the creations, this universe. By reason, meaning by using the sound mind, by reason it recognizes that the universe could not be self-created. Because something that does not exist could not act, it could not produce something. So it is a contradiction, it's an absurdity to claim that something created itself, because that would be in essence claiming that this thing existed before it was originated, and that it was originated after it was already existing. So the Creator, Allah Ta'ala, is for sure exists, and the proof, the general proof, is that the existence of the creations, that the creations could not have created themselves, and similarly this universe, the creations, they could not have existed always forever into the past, meaning have been beginningless. Allah alone is beginningless. And inshallah we will have specific lessons discussing some of these attributes in particular in some detail. So today inshallah we're just starting with the very basics and an introduction to the Muslim belief in the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Among the attributes of Allah Ta'ala that one is obligated to know is oneness, that Allah is the one and only God. Allah Ta'ala revealed in the Holy Quran, وَإِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ, which means, and your God, Allah, Your God is one. And so logically or rationally, we know that there's one creator, because if there were two or three or a multitude of alleged creators, meaning ones who can bring things into being, and Allah Ta'ala is the creator. Humans do not create in the sense that we are mentioning here. If there were two or three or four or a multitude of alleged gods, then these different alleged gods would be competing for each other, would be vying for each other, with each other for supremacy. And that would lead to chaos. As Allah Ta'ala did reveal in the Holy Kitab, in the Holy Quran, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهُ لَفَسَدَتَا, which means that if there had been other gods with the Creator, with Allah, then this universe would have been in ruins. Because, as we said, that these different alleged gods would be vying for competition. So rationally, the mind knows that there can only be one Creator. Allah is attributed with eternality. Eternality we're using with the meaning of being beginningless. Allah alone exists without a beginning, and everything else exists with a beginning. Allah is the Creator, and everything else is a creation. And again, in the context that we're using the word to create here, we mean to bring from non-existence into being. Humans, we do not create. We manipulate. We can imagine, and we can manipulate. But we do not know the reality of our minds. We cannot fathom the reality of our minds. We do not, for instance, know the reality of our consciousness. And we do not even know the reality of our physical body. Meaning, when I even flex my hand like this, I cannot tell you which tendons I am moving, which ligaments are moving, which bones, which muscles. I'm not aware of that. And much less how this is happening in terms of the nervous system. Now, I might be able to explain or read something out of a book, but that doesn't mean that I know the reality of what's happening even with basic physical functions. So in this sense, when we use the word to create, we mean to bring from non-existence into being. And as we said, for the humans, for instance, we do not create, we merely imagine and manipulate. So Allah Ta'ala is attributed with eternality, and we're using the word eternality to mean beginninglessness. So Allah has no beginning, and Allah Ta'ala is attributed with everlastingness, meaning Allah has no end. And Allah Ta'ala revealed in the Quran, هُوَ الْأَوَّلُ وَالْآخِرُ, which means Allah is alone without a beginning, and that He is everlasting. Allah Ta'ala is attributed with non-neediness of the creations, meaning, if you want to use the word, absolute transcendence, that Allah Ta'ala absolutely has no need for the creations. And if one understands that Allah is eternal, beginningless, if one understands truly that Allah exists without a beginning, then it immediately follows, meaning according to reason, that Allah does not need any of the creations. Since Allah existed before the creations existed, Allah existed before any aspect of creation existed, then we know since Allah existed before the creations without a need for the creations, after Allah Ta'ala created the creations, Allah did not change, did not transform, and did not become in need of the creations. The Prophet told us regarding the attribute of eternality, he told when some people approached him and asked him about the beginning of creation, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, كَانَ اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْءٌ غَيْرُهُ, which means that Allah was existing, Allah was, and there was nothing else. Before the origin of creation, before the beginning of creation, the Creator was existing and there was nothing else existing. There was no light, there was no darkness, there was no heavens, there was no earth, there was no time, there was no place. The mind cannot imagine this. The mind cannot imagine no light, no darkness, no distance, no direction, no time, no place, no creations existing at all, just God. But the mind, the sound mind, recognizes that this is true. That since there must be a creator, and the Creator existed before the creations, Then the Creator existed before, as we said, light, darkness, distance, direction, time, and place.